Hi, my name is Dr. Leslie Allen with the Center for Holistic Healing and the creator of Overcome Autoimmunity, Regain Your Health. And I wanted to just share with you the role that stress can have on the body from a physiological standpoint. So I am going to get a little scientific in this video, but really it's important for all of us to understand. Oftentimes, we've all been in stressful situations, and what happens is we kind of push through that stress, but usually in the end we either end up, catching a cold or getting sick or just feeling really run down. Or if you have autoimmunity, this is when you will really start to see those increased flares or exacerbations come up. And the reason for this is that when we're in a chronic stress situation, or just stress in general, so what happens when we experience stress, there's an area of the brain called the amygdala, and it perceives stress. And when this happens, the amygdala actually activates the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis for a whole hormone cascade response, which ultimately leads to the adrenal glands dumping cortisol into the bloodstream to mobilize energy. Cortisol is our stress response, our stress hormone. And with this HPA axis, it actually has a negative feedback loop. So after the adrenals have released cortisol, we've managed to deal with the stressful situation, then we can return back to homeostasis by the adrenal glands letting the hypothalamus know that everything's been taken care of. The other thing that happens simultaneously is the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system makes up the autonomic nervous system. So with the autonomic nervous system, you have sympathetic and you have parasympathetic. Sympathetic is also known as your adrenaline rush. So the fight and flight response that many of us are familiar with, when you're placed in a stressful situation, that experience, the heart rate increases rapidly. Your breath rate will become shallow and will increase. You'll maybe get a pit in the bottom of your stomach. These are all normal responses. And so what happens is when that sympathetic nervous system is activated, it is time to take flight or to fight. So again, the body this is the neurological response that occurs. The body's going to utilize that cortisol that's been dumped into the bloodstream to create energy to either fight or take flight. Now, what often will also happen, not often, but always will happen, is that we only have so much blood flow within the body. And the blood will be stripped from the gut because it's not a time for digestion and absorption of nutrients. It's a time to run or to fight. And so the body will naturally push this blood to the heart, the lungs, the larger muscles of the legs, so we can run, so we can get away from this danger that we're placed in. So the blood allows the healing cells of our immune system to come to the area. Now, when you're in a chronic stress situation where you're getting hit with stressful stress events time and time again throughout your day, and you're constantly stripping blood flow away from the gut, a few things begin to happen. One, if you have an irritation there, the mucosal cells are constantly turning over, but not if you take and strip the blood flow away from them. Then we start to get larger issues like ulcers. Or what will also happen is it will start to impair the good bacteria. So then we start to see these imbalances. Now, the last thing that also occurs is a situation called leaky gut. And so now the permeability of those mucosal cells becomes even greater. So our mucosal cells, the gut is permeable. It's what allows, when we do eat and we are digesting and absorbing nutrients, those mucosal cells will separate slightly to allow some of those nutrients to flow through. But when we're constantly getting hit in a stressful situation, then those tight junctions that are holding the mucosal cells together become weaker and weaker. So now all of a sudden the food particles are just seeping into the bloodstream. We start to see this heightened reaction or response to food. A whole cascade of other things will begin to happen as well. So in stressful situations, we tend to gravitate toward carbohydrates. So our simple sugars to give us that energy that we need in order to get us to our deadline or to complete that stressful task. Our sleep becomes disrupted, which then again, you wake up in the morning, you're leaning more toward the caffeine and trying to drive your body in that manner. You develop what's called a dysregulated cortisol curve. So altering the cortisol should travel the path of the sun, so with the circadian rhythm throughout the day, and that becomes disrupted as well. So you can see we start to get hormone disruption. We have all of these gut issues. 70% of our immune system comes from the gut. And again, it doesn't matter what you're eating. If you're stripping blood flow away because you're trying to eat and you're stressed and you only have 10 minutes between these tasks, then clearly, even if you're eating the healthiest, organic, colorful salad or whatever you may be eating, your body's not going to adequately digest and absorb it because it's not a time. It's a time for fighting or taking flight. It's not a time for rest, relaxation, digestion, and absorption of nutrients coming from that parasympathetic nervous system. And honestly, so you can see how many different systems are involved with stress and how it can have such a huge impact on our overall health. I didn't even get into the impact of neurotransmitters and depleting, norepinephrine and epinephrine are made from the building block of tyrosine and phenylalanine. And when you're constantly depleting that, then you're depleting your thyroid hormone building blocks. So it just becomes a large issue for the whole system. So this is where working one-on-one with someone becomes important because it does take more. I can tell you, if you've got a type A personality, it is a driving force. We respond differently to stress. We kind of use our body as a soldier. We're going to get it done no matter what. We're taskmasters. And so we kind of ignore our stress and our body's communication with ourselves telling us to slow down until we completely flatline and we're done. And so it does take quite a bit to get back on your feet after that, to get everything working together. It often takes a lot more than just the meditation, although those things will help. The yoga, mind-body approaches, mindfulness when eating meals and doing some vagal toning exercises, different things like that, they will all help, but it often then you've got to take it all the way back to the gut after you've been in that chronic stress situation and really begin to repair and restore. All right, I hope you have a great day and found this information helpful. Again, it's one of my favorite topics and something that I've helped people with for many, many years. So if you have any questions or want to dive deeper, I'm more than happy to do that.